Hello, football fans. There's a moment in every career where the world stops believing in you. When your reputation becomes a burden, not a badge. When the very qualities that once made you a genius are now used to mock you. For José Mourinho, that moment didn't come when he lost a game or got sacked. It came when people forgot who he really was. It's easy to remember the trophies, the press conferences, the arrogance, the quotes. But what's harder to remember is that Mourinho was once an underdog, a nobody, just a man with a clipboard and a dream. Long before he became the special one, he was simply José from Setúbal, the son of a former goalkeeper, growing up in a fishing town in Portugal. His father, Felix Mourinho, played professionally and coached. But José, he was different. He was more cerebral, more intense. He didn't just play the game, he studied it. But when he tried to break into football as a player, he didn't make it. Too slow, too average, rejected by clubs that never even learned how to spell his name right. So he quit, not football, but the dream of being on the pitch. Instead, he turned to the sidelines. While his friends chased contracts, Mourinho chased knowledge. He studied sports science, he learned English, Italian, Spanish. He went deep into tactical analysis. He took notes. He built theories. And then the big break, Bobby Robson. When Robson came to Portugal to manage Sporting CP, he needed a translator, someone who could communicate with players and bridge the gap. José got the job. But what Robson didn't know was that his translator was also feeding him tactical ideas, suggestions, subtle changes. Soon, the Old English manager realized this translator wasn't just translating, he was coaching. Robson took Mourinho with him to FC Porto and then Barcelona. And there, in the shadows of the Camp Nou, a manager was being born. Not through fame, not through glory, but through observation, through patience. Fast forward to 2002, José Mourinho is back in Portugal, this time as head coach of FC Porto. And suddenly, the fire inside him erupts. In just 2 seasons, he takes Porto to the summit of European football. First, he wins the UEFA Cup in 2003. Then the unthinkable, the Champions League in 2004. Not with superstars, not with Galacticos, but with grit, unity, and a perfectly executed plan. The world asked, "Who is this guy?" He answered, "I'm not one of the bottle. I think I'm a special one." And just like that, the myth was born. At that time, Chelsea had just been bought by Roman Abramovich, a billionaire with one goal, turned Chelsea into champions. He handed the reins to Mourinho, and the rest was chaos. In his first season, he won the Premier League with a record 95 points, only 15 goals conceded. Chelsea hadn't won the league in 50 years. He did it immediately. But it wasn't just what he won, it was how he did it. He bullied referees. He mind-gamed rival managers. He walked into press rooms like he owned them. He called Arsene Wenger a voyeur. He taunted Rafa Benitez. He refused to say sorry. But behind the scenes, his players loved him. Frank Lampard once said, "I'd run through a brick wall for him. We all would." Drogba, Terry, Makelele, Cech, they weren't just players, they were soldiers in Mourinho's army. But football, like life, isn't fair. After 3 years and 6 trophies, he was gone. Not because he failed, but because his ambition clashed with power. And when that happens, the manager usually loses. Most managers would rest, write a book, do punditry, not Mourinho. He went to Inter Milan, a club desperate for European relevance. In 2010, he pulled off one of the greatest tactical masterclasses in history, defeating Pep Guardiola's Barcelona, the team many call the greatest of all time. With 10 men at the Camp Nou, Mourinho parked the bus. Not out of fear, but out of brilliance. He turned a football match into a war of attrition, and Inter survived. He ran across the pitch, arms wide, face filled with emotion, a rebel genius who had conquered art with strategy. He then won the Champions League final, completing the treble, Inter's first in their history. That night, he cried. Not because he won, but because he knew it was goodbye. He took over Real Madrid, not because it was easy, but because it was war. Barcelona was dominant. Messi was untouchable. Pep's team was poetry in motion. So Mourinho did what he always did. He fought. The results were brutal on the pitch, off the pitch, in the media. Fights, suspensions, eye pokes, touchline bans, a fractured locker room. He broke records and relationships. But in 2012, he did it. 100 points in La Liga, 121 goals scored, the most goals and most points in Spanish history. He stopped Pep's dynasty and walked out the door with his head held high. Back to Chelsea. In 2014-15, he won the Premier League again, smiling, joking, celebrating like the old days. But the next season, things fell apart. Eva Carneiro, player fallouts, poor results, and by December, he was sacked. Fans cried. Players sulked. But football moved on. He joined Manchester United in 2016, a club still grieving the loss of Sir Alex Ferguson. Mourinho brought silverware, Europa League, League Cup, Community Shield, second place behind Pep's unstoppable Man City. But it wasn't enough. He was called finished, outdated, a dinosaur, too defensive, too negative. When he left United in 2018, the criticism was loud. But what they didn't see was that José was tired, not of football, but of trying to survive in a game that had changed. In 2019, he joined Tottenham. Fans were skeptical. Media laughed. He hadn't won a trophy in years, and yet he brought Spurs to a cup final, revived players, even led the league at one point. But the board didn't wait. They sacked him 6 days before a cup final, a final that could have changed the club's history. And then came Roma, a fallen giant in Italy, a club with passion, chaos, and little expectation. In his first season, he won the UEFA Conference League, Roma's first European trophy in decades. He cried. The city celebrated. And suddenly, the old José was back. But even after that triumph with Roma, the critics didn't stop, the media didn't stop, the doubts didn't stop. Because in modern football, memory is short. You're only as good as your last season, your last trophy, your last Instagram post. Mourinho wasn't young anymore. He didn't play flashy football. He didn't bow down to directors of football or embrace TikTok tactics. He still believed in discipline, in loyalty, in structure. And that's why many stopped believing in him. But here's the thing they all forgot. José Mourinho was never a manager made for trends. He was never built to fit in. He was built to stand alone, to challenge the machine, to question the system and win anyway. He didn't rise from a golden generation of players. He didn't charm the media with a perfect smile. He didn't inherit elite teams. He built them. He took Porto to the top of Europe. He made Chelsea believe again. He gave Inter immortality. He broke records in Madrid. He revived United. He led Roma to Europe. That's not a man who got lucky. That's a man who dragged greatness out of clubs who had forgotten how to be great. And yet, the modern game tries to laugh at him. They meme him, mock him. They call him finished every time he loses a match. But guess what? Every time they write his obituary, he writes a new chapter. When journalists say he's done, he wins a trophy. When clubs say he's too defensive, he leads the league by Christmas. When the whole world doubts him, he walks into Roma and gives them a European title they've never seen before. And even in defeat, he remains unforgettable. Take the 2023 Europa League final. Roma versus Sevilla, penalties, heartbreak. Mourinho didn't win that night, but what he did next showed exactly why he'll always be different. He walked across the pitch, slowly, alone. He took off his runners-up medal and handed it to a young fan in the crowd. No anger, no tantrum, just heart. Then he turned and applauded his own fans while the opposition celebrated behind him. Not many men can lose a final and still leave the pitch like a king. But that's Mourinho, because for him, it was never just about football. It was about identity, about loyalty, about protecting your own. That's why his players still text him. That's why they cry when he leaves. That's why they call him father more than coach. He didn't need to be liked. He only needed to be respected. And respect is what he earned. The modern world wants fast success. Clickbait headlines, possession stats, photo shoots, mic'd up training sessions. But Mourinho, he still wants warriors. He still wants grit. He still wants to win ugly if it means his players lift the trophy. And that's why he's become a mirror for the football world. Some see a genius, others see a dinosaur. But one thing is always true. You feel something when José Mourinho is around. The stadiums get louder, the press rooms get tense, the sidelines feel alive. He turns every match into a movie, every post-match into a monologue. Because he's not just managing teams, he's telling stories. Look at the managers today. Many of them learned from him. Many of them copied his press tactics, his man management, his defensive discipline. He was the blueprint before the blueprint had a name. But unlike most, José never begged for validation. He let his work speak, let his passion burn. And even when the fire got him in trouble, it never went out. There's a story that sums up Mourinho perfectly. During his time at Real Madrid, one of his players, Mesut Özil, was having a rough week. Poor form, low confidence. He wanted a break. You know what Mourinho did? He slammed his tactics board down, stared Ozil in the eyes and shouted, "You want to sit? Go sit with your mother in the stands. If you want to play like a man, then fight like one." Ozil was shocked, but he stayed on the pitch, and that weekend he played like a beast. Later, Ozil admitted that moment changed his career. Because Mourinho didn't give him pity, he gave him belief in the form of fire. That's what makes him special. He's not perfect, he's not always politically correct, and he's not always nice, but he's real. And in a world full of scripted apologies and Instagram statements, that matters more than ever. So the next time someone tells you Mourinho is finished, ask them how many managers have. Won the Champions League with Porto, defeated Pep's Barcelona with 10 men, hit 100 points in La Liga, ended Chelsea's 50-year drought, lifted trophies in 4 different countries, and cried with Roma fans after winning the Conference League. Because only one man has done all that, and his name is José Mourinho. So whether he wins another trophy or not, whether he coaches again or chooses to rest, he'll always be the special one. Not because of his record, not because of his quotes, but because in a world full of fakes, he gave us truth. Flawed, brilliant, proud, human. The kind of special that doesn't fade with time, it becomes legend.